You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching the Meta Show.
And we're live.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are live. All lives, all the time.
I can see my little Skype window buttons. That's cute. So we're here today. We have a huge panel of guests, and I would like to welcome one and all. We're going to be discussing some of the biggest news that has happened in EVE Online in a while. We have a massive slate of patch notes with changes to capitals, with changes to super capitals, Titan changes. Somebody's finally doing something about the fucking Corax, thank God. As well as Rorqual nerfs and stacking penalties on faxes. So we're going to be grinding into a lot of that. There's also news of a war that is coming. There's been a lot of rumblings of rumors and discussions of a conflict involving fraternity and a new Russian coalition that's happening in the East. So that's kind of getting hot. We're going to be talking about that this week. So it should be a good time. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our guests as we get started. So we have Aerith, a longtime guest on the show. Aerith, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello.
Aerith is our top financial sociopath and CSM member. We have Asher Elias, the 20... Where are you?
I put him 21st. I don't know if that's been an upgrade or not. But...
promoted me.
Whoa. Wow.
We know who has the real power in this alliance.
Mark Tourist, 30 months. Thank you very much. Asher Salo.
Hello, how are you? Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm well.
And then we have a nominee, also CSM.
Hello.
And Jay Amazingness, who hates talking.
I do. Hello.
All right, excellent.
Yeah, we bought a distinct panel of experts because the topics today require a well-rounded group, as it were.
When will they get here?
Oh, wow. I want to give a shout out here also. Iceburn has subscribed for 52 months.
Yeah,
52 months.
4 years, 4 months. That's ridiculous.
Also, Baby Blue Hippo. He's been Iceburn has been subscribed to this channel for longer than Paul Manafort is going to jail.
I wasn't gonna get fake jokes, but goddamn.
Ozzy, 26 months. Dr. Mordecai, thank you very much.
Aerith, 23 months. Hi, Aerith.
Dilligaff, Fat Shamer. Hail Satan.
Fat 32 Shamer, that's a good name.
Oh, Fat 32 Shamer. That is. Wow. Okay.
So we have a very interesting show. A lot of things happened this week that just kind of made you want to shake your head. CCP announced the biggest balance change ever, and then linked us a balance change that makes me question that remark. The February MER came out this week, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, some changes on that. It's pretty predictable. And then big changes in 0-0 alliance structures and people moving around and getting ready for the end of March Madness. Yeah, I'm well aware my launcher's done, thank you. But yeah, so you want to jump right into it?
Yeah, let's go ahead and a couple of last shout-outs here. Trigger Mechanism 17, Hiraku for sub. Zalman gifting a pile of subs. Wow.
15 subs just got donated.
I thought I saw 5, but either way.
Oh, he's donated 15 overall over his time here.
A total of 15. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into this. So when I saw the dev blog, I really just Corax change, right? That's clearly the most significant thing that's happening. If you are a old school Corax fan, I just went on a rant about this at the Fireside. It is one of my favorite hulls. It has always been garbage tier, and the Talwar looks like a electric nose hair trimmer. Fucking fight me. But that might be my view, but I want to go ahead and start things off here with Asher, and we'll basically just go around to the panel, especially, I'm going to want Aerith's views on the economic aspects of this, because there's nerfs for Rorquals in it. But let's start out with the big fleet battle stuff. We're going to go to Asher and then to Jay. Asher, what are your takeaways from the announcements?
So there were a lot of changes that will affect the fleet battles. I think the Ferox change is probably one that a lot of people have not really focused. They made Feroxes a lot more bombable. They made Feroxes harder to escape bombs because they lowered their agility. So basically, they hit them in 3 ways. They made their signature radius larger, and they made their mass heavier, and they made them less maneuverable. So all those things make them easier to bomb. And if you've ever been to a large battle, you'll see a lot of Feroxes because they're a really good hull. In the same way, they buffed the Harbinger, and they buffed it particularly, and they buffed medium beam lasers, which is what the Harbinger would use. So you might see more Harbinger fleets than you did before in sort of Nullsec fleet fights, which would be pretty cool. I think the Harbinger was kind of a sneaky good hull, but Ferox has always outshined it a little bit. As far as the capital changes, they made Hawes on Titans 50% less damaging, which is sorry, I guess I'm anyway, they made Hawes on Titans slightly less damaging, which is basically worthless. If there's enough Titans there, they can still keep any subs out of range of them. If there's like 3 or 4, then maybe that matters. Hawes on Dreads are still good. What I think they should have done was they should have lowered the tracking on Hawes and then made Dreads get tracking from sieging. But they didn't, so I'll just armchair design that myself. And then the big change would be to fax reps and to fighters. So they made fighters apply worse. And this is something that will affect sort of Dumbos a lot more than anyone else because, like, if you watch a big Pandemic Horde carrier group, you'll see they use like 3 Dromies. Dromies are the web-applying support fighters, and that's a bad practice. The better groups use more, and it'll affect them less. The problem, of course, is still that fighters can fly 9,000 meters a second when they have their MWDs on, and so there's really no kiting them. So they're always going to get on you, and they'll probably still kill you. But it is an appreciable nerf. And then the last change, of course, and the biggest one that people are talking about is the faxes. And all reps now get stacking penalties, where the more you rep, the more the more they fall off. Each rep is worth less. This only applies in really big fights, like 30 faxes or more. But the important thing about this is that there are 2 different stacks of fall-off penalties. There's a shield stack and an armor stack. And what that means is that this is actually a huge buff to armor supers, because armor supers can get shield reps and can get armor reps. And you're like, well, why would you do that? Well, if you can get 30% more reps than a shield fleet can, you might outlive them. And that's what you can do since armor ships can run shield tanks, but shield tanks can't run armor tanks. And I know I'm in the weeds there, but it's a really important distinction, and it's actually something that in a big fight you might see an armor fleet simply out-tank a shield fleet based on the fact that they can have a more effective repping than the other one can.
A question I wanted
This
to
is probably the biggest single buff to the Erebus in a long ass time.
One question, Asher, and someone brought this to my attention, I don't know if CCP's looking at this or maybe they are, is what happens if you're fighting an armor fleet with a shield fleet and they just start throwing armor reps at the target they're going to primary, right? They're going to put a ton of reps on there. Armor reps on a shield ship don't matter, and then they get shot at, and now they can't get reps from shields because it enters that fall off.
Initially it took me about 3 minutes to sort of come up with this strategy, but then someone at CCP came out and said that it's 2 stacks, so essentially shield and armor are separate. So you can't offensively shield rep, but what it means is that
you can double the reps up on someone.
Yeah, well, like, so if you have an Erebus and you've put 2 A-type adapters on it and an X-type EM ward field, it'll actually have a pretty good shield tank, and it can catch shield reps and armor reps at the same time. So you won't get double the reps because that's not how it works, but you'll get way more than a shield titan could get.
It's right. So it'd be like X47 where we double tanked ours, and the enemy said that was useless.
Exactly.
That would have benefited us with this patch a lot more than it would have them.
Now the question is are there going to be fights in EVE that involve people using guns to punch through Titan? Does that exist? Because that's sort of a theoretical fight. Like, yeah, you can drop Dreads at 0 and punch through Titans, maybe with the changes, but we're still talking about something that maybe won't actually ever happen. It might just be that because of the necessities of server ticks and the way it works, that you'll in really bad super tie-dye, that it will always be doomsday fights. And in that case, this won't matter. It won't matter at all. But if you're at the place where fighter bombers and dread guns are killing Titans through reps, it's a big buff to armor supers.
Where I thought about this week at work, and I'm gonna get your opinion, Jay, too, on this, is in an X-47 style fight where you take the guns and you're destroying the shields off an Erebus or an Avatar, then DDing it with this change. Because if they're getting double reps, as in the armor bonus, this could be a time where you really want to put pressure on them through their shields and then DD them. And I could see that happening with this change, because the reps won't catch as hard. Like, that's one of the things X-47, when we threw the DDs, the reps could catch them in some cases, right? And then that guy wouldn't die. But I could see with guns and DDs, this could change that, I think.
It's certainly possible, yeah.
So, Jay, what is your general overview of patch changes? I noticed that Asher hasn't mentioned the changes to NSA, which Jay, you might want to hit on, unless you don't care about it.
They're changing the NSA to make it like sort of like a really
1 minute sign up.
Bastion module.
It's like 1 minute sign up. 1 minute sign up is probably the best description. So you can't warp your ship while it's active. They haven't said that you can't jump, so you can still jump out. But because the NSA takes so much cap, that isn't really a problem. It really affects radders, I think. Like the two people that will be affected by this are people not paying attention on fleets, because if you're aligning a carrier group, something happens and you will have to warp out. The 4 or 5 people that have got their NSAs turned on still will get caught. And it'll also affect radders that are aligned out radding. Say a gang jumps into local, they can't instantly warp out. They need to deactivate their NSA and then warp out. So it's going to force people to use sensor boosters on their radding fits. And probably you won't see as many radding hells, I don't think. You'll mostly see radding nixes, the people that want to AFK the process a little bit more, which means it means that two sensor boosters is about half the lock speed of the NSA. It's actually 270-ish millimeters slower, but it means if you can bubble a super that's running in a saber, you won't instantly get locked by the super and he'll kill you. So you have a chance to tackle supers a lot more effectively.
I think the assumption has been that this is going to be some sort of, and we saw this just pop up in the chat. People are saying that it's going to be a huge impact on botters, but that is probably not actually the case, because they'll just be swapping to Nixes with.
Well, this is the question I had for Aerith. I'm glad Aerith's here, and even a nominate is, did it feel like when you guys were talking to CCP about this big patch was pushed at a solution for botting? It looks like VNIs. The change to VNIs makes it so frigates can fight VNIs now, where in the past, my Interceptor would get killed by a VNI. You had this change to the NSA, which is really popular with super radders, carrier radders. The same thing with the Rorqual. It feels like if a Rorqual's by itself, like maybe a botter would be, they can't put away all their drones, and they're going to lose some value there. Do you think this is what CCP is targeting with this?
I can't get into too much specifics because of NDA, but I would say that I've been pushing a viewpoint when this all came about, when hey, remove local came, right? Oh, chat's messed up, local's gone. I've never been a proponent of removing local without replacing it with some sort of in-game mechanic, but what you can do is slow down the ability for a botter or a pilot that's kind of AFKing or not paying attention to get off grid before someone can get on and pounce, right? So I've definitely been a proponent of changes that result in inattentive players or slower players or just bad players getting tackled, and then letting that gameplay happen. Whether they die or get saved, at least there's gameplay happening. So I've definitely been a proponent of that to CCP.
I think there's a lot of room for game mechanics and nerfs to ratting that disproportionately hurt botters rather than active players. And I think that some of what we're seeing in the changes here is an example of that.
to all of you guys who flew the Gila and Abyssal sites, thank you for ruining Gila fleets for the rest of us.
Yeah, that's here's my next question. And Aerith, since you nominated brought this up, while they are targeting the botters, and everyone can see that from the way this is designed, because this is the guys that like the solo PvP, this is like their dream. But it feels like not so much botters. It feels like they're going after the solo pilot who PvEs. And it looks like in order to make up for all these changes, you either have to get more alts or do things like abyssal sites or burner missions or something that's more luck involved. Would you say that might be a direction?
No, I don't think that I see any indication that CCP is going after solo pilots. If anything, I think they're trying to make soloing viable for everyone. But I do think that these changes, if you have friends, they're far less impactful than if you don't, right? And that's just one of the rules of EVE. Small and large groups and things of that nature. So, does it hurt goons as much as it maybe hurts another nullsec entity? No, it doesn't. But it at least targets large problems that exist within the game, and it at least makes the playing field a little bit more level.
I see this targeting renters very heavily, because renters don't have standing fleets that come save each other, right? Like a renter group may have its own little place where it's like 5 or 6 guys in their own little pocket, and if you can't get help, it seems like you're going to die. But the fighter application nerf, the super application with the fighters, like if you get tackled, you're going to have a really hard time getting away without help. Sorry.
I don't think so. I think that this is groups that are playing smart and you're fitting properly and you're semi-combat fit when you're PvEing. I think you can call your friends or even get out and fight your way out. I don't think it substantially changes the field. It just means that you're far more likely to get caught.
Yeah, I'm gonna offer sort of a contrasting viewpoint. I don't think that when we're looking at these changes that there's any sort of grand intention on CCP's part to target or go after any particular playstyle. CCP, when they want to go after botters, they shoot them. Like they do a bunch of stuff that Pelagro and crew do that we don't necessarily see. These changes to NSAs aren't going to impact botters because they'll just use 2 sensor booster nixes, shit like that.
Actively playing the game and actively running in your super carrier, it's still better to use the NSA. And if you get tackled, well, you've created some content.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that what we're seeing here is a long overdue, and by and large, I'm a fan of all the changes. This is sort of like a long overdue balance patch. We haven't had a big set of tweaks to how ships work. They've hit a lot of the issues that are relevant to the big ships that are used currently, right? Carriers all the time. NSAs are getting used constantly. Those are getting adjusted. VNAIs get used constantly. Rorquals get used constantly. Like I don't really. So many things have been affected by this patch. I think it would be reading too much into a hypothetical pattern to suggest that there was a target that CCP is going after.
Well, there are two things. One thing I love and one thing I hate with this patch, and I'm going to get some opinions from everyone here. But as a Leviathan pilot, someone made this this post this week right after the patch was announced. They went into the numbers crunch and found that using a battleship-sized gun or missile launcher on a Leviathan is roughly the same damage for a fraction of the cost, range damage, reload time, all that, on a Leviathan after this patch than using the Haws. Like, Haws are 650 mil a piece for the good sets. T2 torp launchers are like 5 million-isk, right? This is something I think CCP might want to look at specifically for the Leviathan. So that's one of the things I didn't like. But the Rorqual change is huge. The 4-minute cycle time on Panic is at a base, which is a lot of people tend to go base on that. They don't, they inject their way up to the base. Is a big deal because if a person forgets to unsiege when they go into Panic, the siege is 5 minutes. So there's a minute window to blow that guy up before he can get reps from his friends. And you see that a lot with Rorquals that are defended.
That'll just force people to train invulnerability corporations to 5.
Right.
Instead of 3 or 4 or whatever it is currently. So you just have to train it to 5 now, which is like another 30 days to guarantee that you will be safe.
Yeah, if someone slips up for a second, groups like Init that do their 100-man bomber fleets, 200-man bomber fleets, are going to blow up that Rorqual no matter what's on grid, right? And I think that's good for the game. That's a really big balance change right there.
Here's like an analogy. Have you ever seen someone who had to train against someone really hard? It's sort of like when you train wearing those weights on your arms and your legs, and then you take them off. And when you're doing whatever it was without the weights on, it feels really easy. I think that's what killing Rorqual is going to be like now. Like me and other people have spent so much time killing them that we got these methods down to beat the local tank that they've now nerfed.
We're gonna Lancel Rorqual, you can kill any Rorqual.
Right. Yeah, I think that's where this is going with this, right? Like Bomber's Bar is going to have a field day.
People think I was referencing the hyperbolic time chamber or whatever, but I was actually thinking of the hockey player Jaromir Jagr. He always trains with weights on his arms and legs. So I'm a sports nerd, and you're anime nerds.
Yeah, but it's a valid point, right? Like the reps, local tank has been significantly reduced, right? And once you put them into panic, the time for them to get help is significantly reduced. So you're going to see Rorquals needing more reaction, more paying attention, more friends on a quicker reaction. This is really going to hit the solo Rorqual that's out in the middle of nowhere, away from his friends, that doesn't want to say where he's mining because he wants to keep it a secret. He's going to die. Like, he's just going to get caught. He's going to get killed.
I think this is a huge buff to the Imperium. I think that's going to result in even more success when it comes to the monthly economic reports. I want to, before I go into this...
In terms of the MER thing, is because you mine 20% lower now, you can force 20% more Rorquals to mine the same thing. So either people are going to inject more Rorquals, or you can just have more, like a more densely... populated region.
This has been one of the big problems with all of the Rorqual nerfs, is everything that they can do to nerf the Rorqual is something that we can easily work around. You know, you remove the tank on them, well, we still have Panic, we still have Sinos, we still have Super Capitals and Faxes. You nerf the mining amount, well, we add more Rorquals. But anything that you do that hurts us a little bit really hurts everybody else.
Yeah, I agree, and that's where I think this is a good thing for people that play 0-0 to the fullest extent. Like, they utilize their space and defend the places they have. Groups like Tribute and Veil with NC Dot, they have their little pocket now they're trying to form. That's going to be a little more safer. Delve's going to be safer. Test Space is going to be safer. The Drone Lands, oh, fuck, that's going to be a feeding frenzy after this change. Like, the amount of super carriers they're going to get caught, you know, VNIs, you name it.
Well, I mean, what are you guys talking about? They're just going to run, like, the botters are not going to run NSAs. They're just going to run SIBOs. Like, yeah, like this is a nerf to botting income. It's I'm not saying CCP admitting they can't handle it, but it's them nerfing botting income because, in my opinion, they can't handle it, right?
Right.
I think it is interesting that Villy has popped on here in chat and also agrees that this is a massive Imperium buff. I think it's going to be ugly. I think it's going to be hilarious. I don't know if there's anybody in chat that disagrees and thinks that it's actually a nerf to us, because I'm not sure how, on Fireside Chats we talk about like relative differentials and competition between organizations and the meta in EVE, but I don't know if like everybody else is like on the same page yet.
On a personal level, this is Malcanis' law in effect hurting me. Like I'm not a big Rorqual miner like other people are, and the nerf to income from an individual Rorqual or a few Rorquals will hurt me a lot more than will hurt a guy who runs 30 of them, right? Like he's still going to be making much more than I am. Yeah. It's a benefit to the overall economy because they're taking the amount of ore out of the system. But if you're the person who's not running a bunch of them, you're going to get even less than you were before.
Well, it's let me abstract this up one more level, right? So if you're one of the top, few guys in EVE, you're running a big alliance or you're running a big finance team, you're seeing individual income generation take nerfs across the board, whether it's activist generation with ratting or whether it's mining pacifist generation where you didn't sell the goods, right? And you got these insurance changes we haven't talked about yet on the meta show, but are also part of this, where you see capitals and large ships getting nerfed on their insurance payouts, so your SRP bills are going to go up. So you have less individual wealth generation, you have more alliance, essentially expenses coming, and then you have a meta where, because it's going to be a DD slugfest in any future fights over keeps, where it's going to be Titan on Titan fights, you're going to see attrition now, where if there was enough facts on the field, maybe you could save things that didn't get whiffed, but now it is likely to result in a meta where there'll be more destruction at a high level. So now you need more income to pay for those big fights that happen once a year that cost you trillions of ISK, right?
Destruction's good, but I don't think you're going to see more of it in any particular sense. There just was, like, there was no capacity for more destruction in X47. There needed to be more time. That was what saved people in X47 was time, not like tax.
Yeah, there's always the run to downtime argument. No doubt there. What I'm saying, though, is think about the next fight. Let's just make an imaginary scenario, semi-imaginary, where we go after Tribute next, right? We march up to Vince and we kick his face in on his first Keep Star and we just push all in right away. Let's just say we did that. Like, the old headshots are dumb, but we try it, right? What is he looking at? He's probably looking at a 3 to 4 trillion ISK bill to defend that keep if he's successful. Does he do that? Well, I don't think so, because you just say, fuck this, evac, and eat 300 billion, right?
It's cheaper to let a Keep Star die after these changes rather than risk a defense.
Well, it
was before though. Like, Eve, we all know this. Eve's not one on dollar bills or ISK bills, right? It's one on morale, and you defend your Keep Star because it's your Keep Star, it's your symbol, not because that 300 billion is particularly important to you.
It might be.
Do you think he'll defend it? Let's get into this. Let's get into this. Do you think if we push all in our next campaign, he defends it?
He has to, and here's why. Eve is now a game of headshots. You headshot that staging Keep Star that people have been using for 6 months to a year. That's all their shit. That if it doesn't get evacuated because they have a few people AFK, that's 3 weeks. They're out of assets. And when they get it,
twitching uncontrollably about the idea of Eve Online being a game of headshots.
No, but I mean, like,
it's literally everything that we have learned about warfare.
It's the opposite now. But
in the last 15 fucking.
But the reason I say this is if you so say let's use the Tribute one for example. That's been there since NC has taken over the place. That hasn't changed. As like the people that go AFK still have their Titans there. The people who go AFK still have all of their implants there. If that thing dies, it's 3 weeks or another Keep Star in system before they can get their stuff out in Nullsec. That's a hard recovery just on the assets.
I have this deep pain in my stomach because I agree with Boat and I disagree with Mittens. But
because that's what happens. You get headshot now, it's 3 weeks, right? With stations in the past,
like
stuff was safe.
They've built a game of headshots. They've built a game of headshots because they have made it a slog and almost not worth it to go for the Sov, and they have put the everything in these little baskets. I think it's a mixture of the two. Like, it's important that you wear down the morale of the enemy before. You don't want to roll in on day one and go for the headshot, but that you don't. You want to push it to the point where you're popping the pimple and going for that Keep Star event.
Look at Declan. The economic warfare we did to Declan over months. If we just decided at that point, okay, we're just going to headshot their stager, right? That economic drain, that the people going, yeah, fuck this is a slog fest, I hate it, and then bam, there goes their assets for 3 weeks. That would. But
it was a different war. No one knew we were the 800-pound gorilla then. Everybody knows it now. So the choice that would be in front of Vince is: do I take the huge morale hit, have to relocate my alliance, and let my people's assets burn to some degree, 15%, whatever, but I save the alliance trillions of ISK that I probably don't have? Or do I push all in, lose shitloads of ISK, and the outcome's probably the same anyway? I'm saying Eve's changed now. The amounts of ISK that's on the table and you lose now is staggering, and CCP just made it a lot harder to make more.
Okay, so
we have Billy here now.
Yeah, exactly. I want to segue to if your mic is working.
Good day.
Because this war might be happening as we speak with Test FRT soon. So what is your opinion with this balance coming like right before your big war, or maybe even during it?
Well, there's a whole lot to talk about in this patch. Obviously, the Rorqual nerfs are a little much in my opinion. I don't think they necessarily achieve what they're aiming for, aside from just decreasing the effectiveness of anyone outside a massive umbrella's ability to actually mine. I think the diminishing return nerf is on reps is not fully thought out, but if it goes through the way it goes through, so be it. If it doesn't, if it gets improved a little, maybe that'll be better, but.
Billy, you represent the biggest shield super fleet in the game. What is your take on it? Because I've already said mine, but I'm interested to see if you agree or you disagree.
So the nerf if the nerf happens right now as it is at the 10% cap, it's better for shield than if it actually goes up, which is what I've actually advocated on forums for a little while ago. In terms of, like, if it goes through now, we'll be fine. You know, we probably won't have to make too much of an adjustment. It's hard to say how things will go overall. Like, there's more factors to everything than just, you know, what things look like on paper. It's how the meta develops around it, right? So, and to me, the way I kind of read it is that the meta will become basically like true, like old school Dredd brawls, with people trying to find a way to interject their supers halfway through the battle in a position when the dreadnoughts are a little exhausted. Because if you go in immediately, obviously your supers are going to get absolutely like incinerated by any even remotely capable Dread force, unless you manage to land like a perfect bosun. So, to me, like, this seems like it's got the possibility of just absolutely choking out a lot of the mainline super capital brawls kind of stuff, and especially if you're in a situation where there's two super caps, you know, just throwing shit out like nonstop. There's no way that Faxes will ever even remotely keep up with Titan and super carrier level damage. So it's going to be interesting to say the least.
Here's a question, and someone brings this up in chat. Sugar does, and this is a point I really wanted to get to with all you guys here. 300-man Dread bombs. If this patch goes live as is with the fax changes, that 400-man Dread bomb that we did recently, I think with tests, or on the other foot, like NC and PL did to you guys, does the fax reps amount matter in that situation, along with the insurance cost, because the insurance is vastly changing?
So the fax reps will still negate, you know, the first 100 dreads worth of damage. After that, you basically are negating nothing. You know, it goes from basically a fax negating like four dreads per fax, roughly, like, and it's actually a little higher than that in certain situations, a little less than that, down to like 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 of a fax dread per fax, which means that obviously, you know, if you bring an extra 100 fax, you're only negating 30 more dreads. So the correct play is always to just bring more dreads to kill their dreads quicker, so that, you know, your stuff has a chance to survive. But it's going to be I would arguably say all but impossible to save supers under anything past 250 dreads. Like, and when I say all but, I mean, like, supers are going to die in like 30 seconds, real time kind of thing, like through reps. And obviously, you know, you expand that inside of like 3 or 4 minutes per super. That's still a lot of supers dying.
That's assuming Dredd's guns work, you know, in Mega Tie-Dye.
Yeah, but there's also all kind. That's assuming, you know, shield reps work to negate the first 100 fax worth of damage. You know, you assume your hardeners are on. You assume you know, there's 100 assumptions you can make, right? But like on paper, you know, Dredd guns generally work, quote unquote, air quote, okay. You know, they don't necessarily work well. They don't work bad. They work okay, right? So certainly my assumption would be if you dropped a 400-man Dredd bomb on someone, you're killing at least 10, 15 Titans.
The thing that I really like about the diminishing returns change is just that this is one of the first new balance knobs that CCP has had in many years. So even if the change as it goes in is not perfect, it's something that they can tweak in the future.
I see this, and this is, for those wondering, a lot of people ask in chat, what is this payout change? 50% less payout for insurance. It costs 33% less. On Dreads, the cost was only about 400 million platinum as is. Wasn't that big of a deal, but that 50% decrease is pretty big. You're talking Dreads will be more expensive. Faxes won't get hit as hard, but Dreads are going to notice that, and big Dread whelps, like Dread bombs. You're going to see a huge increase.
Just to correct that, it's 50% for super capitals where insurance is nerfed, and 33% for regular capitals.
Yeah, it's less. Yes, exactly.
Oh, okay. Then that note is wrong.
Which is, in all honesty, pretty, like, once again, it's negligible for large blocks, and it's very significant for not large blocks.
A question that came up a minute ago, and this again going towards the big fights to come. Do you need to have, with the combination of fighter changes, the NSA, to be able to extract your supers, are you going to need to have subcaps on grid? Now that, you know, all it takes is 2 or 3 supers pressing the NSA button and they're stuck when you go to Fleet Warp. Are you going to have to use more subcaps or win the subcap fight in order to extract safely when you got hundreds of supers on the field?
It helps, but I'm still of the opinion that super should be just fine. terms of extracting themselves. The problem is they didn't nerf the core problem of super carriers right now, which is Drommies and Sirens. That's the true big issue, because, you know, especially with super carrier fleets, the thing they're using to kill subcaps is not, you know, light fighters, which were nerfed. It's long range fighter bombers, which track like as if they had cruiser guns, right? So that's like that combined with Sirens and Drommies is the real problem with super carrier fleets and their ability to tear apart subcaps.
Okay. Now that we got Villy here, if we could have a segue moment, we got a huge thing happened this past week. I say huge because it's something that's been common at EVE as of late, and it's the term we-dotting. For those that understand, that's when a alliance, I think we-dot was the first to do it, as you take a whole alliance, you put it all into one corp, and then move that corp to another alliance. A big one happened this week. Origin we-dotted. They took all of Brave, or not Brave, wow, sorry. I apologize. Black Legion, and put them into Origin, and then took Origin along with ELO to and joined FRT. The comment we got from Norris, the CEO of FRT, says simply because both Test and Origin are U.S. time zone heavy, I needed someone who can with the FC talents to counter the Pro God Legend Villy combo. They're looking for easy praise right now and the content. And to be honest, Winter Coalition alone doesn't match Legacy in terms of numbers or fleet quality. So that was the quote from him. Villy, what do you think of that?
It's accurate. I mean, it doesn't, like, Elo's not going to be, you know, the white knight on the horse, but he'll help. I mean, it's just the truth. We were expecting Black Legion to come, but I definitely wasn't expecting the white dot, so it's a different way to do it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I don't know, maybe Mittens will comment about this from, like, a CEO level, but I think this is a financial positive for Elo, right? Now that he doesn't have to deal with the management of an alliance as a whole, making sure his guys are where they need to be, he can leave that to Norris, and he could just FC and have reimbursement run by the alliance, right? Like, it doesn't seem like he has to deal with all that other stuff other than just FC and have fun.
I don't think that Elo really did anything as far as like alliance management in the first place. Like, Black Legion has always been very, like, I don't even know if they have like a functioning like reimbursement thing. It was back in the day, you know, Crystal Army kind of.
Well, they had a guy handling it, and they had a guy who would like make sure they had supers and stuff, right? Now he can like delegate. Supers can be going with the FRT supers, and he wouldn't have to FC both. And that seemed like a thing he had to deal with a lot.
I have sort of a, you know, I don't want to. Well, actually, I guess I am going to be talking shit about Black Legion. But functionally speaking, and like, this isn't motivated from a place of spite. I'm not like going, oh my god, like grr Black Legion, but they're still being treated as a news item, right? Like when Gobbins hired them to do something or other, you know, they haven't really made a meaningful impact on a campaign in EVE Online for years. Like, they have like people, oh, they hired Black Legion got involved, and then nothing happens, right? So them joining fraternity and they're gonna totally do something or other in USTZ, you know, I just don't see. If it does make a difference, that would be interesting, because that would be different from the last few times we've been on the show talking about, hey, Black Legion is deployed and Elodite is totally going to do stuff and things are going to be different, and then
so it's actually funny. What they're doing in U.S. time zone is giving me things to do.
Yeah, because otherwise there's nothing in that war otherwise.
Yeah, I'm bored. Can we do
the last 3 nights in a row? It's just been like me sitting on gate with like 15 other Titans, like planning out his routes, like with bosons. We got him the second night, and last night he came in and he's just like dipping on the edge of our territory. He's like, oh, what's going on over there? I don't know. That's so tricky. He came like within 3 jumps of the trap, and then he just like turned around. It was like, oh, come on. Like, they've done nothing, right? They just like, I don't want to get bosoned again.
I mean, I do think the bosun trap, I mean, it's so funny when it happens, but man, it is really annoying how you just have to look at every gate. If there's one person in system, you're like, this could be the time. Let me perch on it.
Especially in certain regions, right? There's like 3 or 4 regions of space in EVE, especially Delve, where every gate could have one waiting, cloaked, ready to go. Here's the thing, and we can segue into this. Since we have Villy, Asher, Jay, Mittens, all these big players here, Mittens as always. I noticed the trend this week, last couple weeks now, on EVE Who. EVE Who tracks alliance and corporation movement up, down, and numbers.
That's right.
The big
AB, select start.
Right. Like And here I thought you weren't a nerd. But big notice here is Nullsec is going up. Elite PvP is down. So what do I mean by that? Goblins, Hordes gained 3 new corps, all early EU, like really early, or late Australian time zone. 1 Polish, 1 Chinese, and the one is like kind of in between. This gives them another 300-400 dudes near downtime, which is something I think Horde's missing. You're seeing Fraternity pick up Origin. They've also picked up a few Chinese corps and have passed 10,000 members for the first time ever in that alliance's history. So they're now hit the 10K mark. But the big noticeable downtrend, though, is PL, NSH, Nullsec Naya, Siege Green, which is a low-sec group, Drone Walkers, which does small-scale stuff, and then, of course, Black Legion, all down hundreds. So you're seeing the elite PvP groups that you would know as like, oh, hey, watch those guys in this bit of space are down. What do you guys think of that?
Like elite PvP's been dying for what, 2 years? It's only been a matter of time, and you can actually factor in NC in that to some degree. So
yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that one of the biggest issues that you're seeing from entities like PL or Black Legion, the game is changing, and that's one thing, but also it's a leadership issue, right? Like, if you had engaged leadership that was actually like doing stuff, what we've seen with these Black Legion deployments in the past is like they deploy and then pretty rapidly it sort of peters out. Same deal with the Pandemic Legion situation there. You just don't have anyone besides Headliner trying to do stuff, and Headliner has a habit of pissing people off. So I'm not so sure whether it's a situation. You remember NC Dot used to be elite PvP, still considers themselves to be elite PvP. I still consider them to be an elite PvP entity in terms of their attitude, their leadership, their policies, and they're still around. So I don't think that like elite PvP is dying off, but I think you are seeing the effects of organizations that don't have a sort of a broad swath of leadership figures.
That's what I mean. Sorry, I don't mean elite PvP. I mean like the groups that do elite PvP tend to not have organized leadership. It's usually FCs or a cult personality that take fleets out and keep them alive and keep them active, and there's not really a structure to it. And that when that structure just vanishes, they're like petering out. Like that's why I think NC's still around in such a big way. They still have a structure of leaders. But you can see, if you watch, a lot of groups that used to survive on, like, cults of personality or FCs, you're starting to see them disappear or vanish entirely. So I don't know if that's good or bad for EVE, because that generated a lot of, like, wars or internal conflicts in the game that led to wars. I don't know.
But
to me,
it is the time.
Okay, go.
You go.
Well, I'm just the question is, it's these elite PvP groups are the equivalent of like the kung fu fighter in a movie who has like all the enemies come at him. There's 10 enemies, but they come at him one at a time, right? And that works as long as they come at you one at a time. But once they figure out if we all just rush them at the same time, we just tackle them. And EVE has been just people evolving and getting better at playing the game. Right. And the better you are at playing the game, the less that skill difference, if it even exists anymore, makes. I mean, have you seen there's good FCs in test? Like, who would have thought, right? Like that's a surprise.
Yeah, you were like Steve level in our group.
I mean, Sidu's been like making a name for himself with the first ever. Oh yeah, Billy. Now that you're here, I meant to ask you, how did you take the first ever loss of a big ass faction titan like that? How did you handle that? Did you yell? Were you mad?
Yeah, I was quite annoyed.
Oh, because I heard you weren't even involved. Like you weren't even consulted. And I was like, whoa, wow, Billy.
Yeah, no, like the thing is, most of the FCs in test have a pretty. What would the word be? We give them pretty good reign to do what they want to do. It's just
give them a lot of rope.
Yeah, I gave them a lot of rope, and they certainly did not achieve desired results in this objective, obviously. And so be it. It happens. I don't know. I wasn't thrilled about. Like, I didn't really care all that much about the Komodo in like the scheme of things. It was just like it was such an annoying thing. Like overall, like I just was not particularly happy with the results, let's say.
Okay.
Speaking of not particularly happy with results, I'm going to be segueing to Aerith for us to talk about the monthly economic report. We haven't really done that.
Yeah,
There's
I was just linking it.
I'm happy with the results of the MER, but I'm sure the rest of the galaxy might not be. We've also gone into Cool Kids Only mode, which is something we do every show in the last 15 minutes. So if you're a subscriber, this is your opportunity to toss in questions that we can needle our guests with between all of the MER stuff. So, Aerith, what can you tell us about this month's MER, and what are we seeing in the economy as a whole?
We saw economic activity go down a little bit overall across all of Null. Production down, kind of across Eve. That's not too big a change. I mean, and this is even accounting for the short month. And then you saw, you're starting to see some of the economic impacts if you watch real closely in the primary producer and the secondary producer impacts. For example, we've been trying to corner a lot of the T2 market and the Moongood market now. We've been successful for a year and a half almost now. But you're starting to see that the effects very noticeable in the MER. So I made sure I spent all of January preparing for something that would pop, and then spent all of February kind of manipulating it back to what I have 2 months to compare January versus February. And you'll see that in the primary producer index and the secondary producer index, and you'll see it in the indices and what they break down into. So it's interesting to see how the market impacts we can have when we're trying to spread that price disparity between high-end Moongoo and lower-end Moongoo. You're starting to see that price separate even more. So the basketing effect, you're starting to see it across all of advanced materials and intermediates and raw goo, and then into the T2 components themselves. And you can see this in the MER if you watch closely. And it actually almost looks like a heartbeat in the MER. Is every month I do the manipulation and then I let it cool and do the manipulation. You will actually see it like a beacon in the tables if you look at them closely.
You know what's really annoying about the MER is that it gives mining in an ISK value. So it has ore, but it's tied to an ISK value, and it doesn't say exactly. I'm sure, but the problem is that that doesn't let you know how much ore was. It lets you know how much ore was mined relative to the value in ISK that month, but that's usually a decreasing price. So you have no idea, or not an exact idea, if ore in absolute terms increased or didn't.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because you look at Delve minerals tend to sell for a lot cheaper than they do in Jita, for example, and you have a lot of the guys in the north selling Jita or straight to Jita, whereas a lot of goons will sell in Delve internally and on 1DQ market even.
Yeah, but it's pretty easy if you have decent analytics on your members' APIs and stuff to figure out the total amount of ore and you don't even have to have the total amount of ore, just the rough ratios of ore to each other that they mine. As long as you have that statistic, you can pretty much back into the rest of the calculations. I mean, the MER is really too much information, but CCP is going to keep handing it to us.
Yeah, one thing I noticed on this MER, and this one kind of stuck out a bit, this is one of the only things I paid attention to here, was the total destroyed was huge in February. Delve hit 1.6 trillion. And then when you look at that, then you look at the amount produced in Delve. Now, you always said that's skewed. It dwarfs it. Just the amount of stuff coming out of Delve in production and money and value dwarfs what's dying on a monthly basis. It's almost unbelievable.
Well, what's interesting about this, and I don't talk about this much outside of our internal cabal places, but we would actually like to see more destruction in Delve. The disparity is getting wider and wider, so you need a healthy amount of destruction to keep your producers happy. They're getting constant sales to keep your market taxes juiced. So you don't want to die too little in Null compared to your overall income. You want a very healthy balance, right? And we actually would just like to see more death.
Because I saw 1.6 trillion is a lot, and then someone told me that's not.
How much Omega Gold is doing damage-wise?
What, I couldn't hear the first part?
He said,
away how much damage Omega Gold is doing to the Goonies.
Nice.
Yeah, we need a lot more of him. We need 50 more of him because he barely does shit. So we need a lot more of those.
I was just about to ask about with this change, and we didn't talk about this, and I wanted to ask, you had a couple months back now, we had some leaked, I think this is back in December, leaked logs from Vince saying, buy supers, you better be in fucking supers soon. There's a reason. We didn't know the reason. Nobody knew the reason outside of maybe some NDA people. And now we're seeing that, okay, they're looking at Hall of Titans. They're looking at, fax reps and stuff like that. But the question I have is, you're seeing people getting out of the Hell game because of the sensor boost change. Is that going to affect people that build supers? Like it seems like a lot of super producers are building them for guys that PvE, right? And that tends to drive the economy a lot. Is that going to be a change? I know Mitten's looking at me like I'm crazy, but
well, I think that any downside to supers on an individual level, whatever Nyx or Hell, will be offset by more of them dying. Like, so we want to see more PvE Hells dying because PvP, super carriers dying is extremely rare. Like, it might happen once a month. I mean, it doesn't really happen. So you want PvE super.
Well, I mean, at this point in the game, like, what, PvE super dies like twice a day? Like, throughout all of EVE? So,
about 5 or 6 a day on average, yeah.
Was it 5 or 6 a day? Jesus.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point now where daily average is about between 5 and 6. Depends on the day. Some days it's a lot higher, and some days still a little lower. Rorquals are averaging 300 killed a month. I think with this change, that's going to go even more, a bit larger, maybe 400 or 500. People willing to. The question is now, and then I'll leave this for Asher here. We're running out of time. Do you see people willing to risk maybe losing a little more ships to kill off that Rorqual now that the amount of tank and survivability of that Rorqual's less? Like, do people push to try and kill it now that they're going to lose excavators pretty much guaranteed? They can't save all of them.
I mean, yeah, so they can only save 3 in a wet 2, I believe.
Right, yeah.
Although, remember, if you feel like you're going to lose those Dredds, they insure for less value, so you have to put that in your calculations.
No, I don't mean Dredds. Sorry, I meant like say you got a 100-man bomber fleet. Are you going to risk that 100-man bomber fleet to get those 2 or 3 Rorquals now that you know that they're going to lose excavators, right? You know that they're going to lose value somewhere.
I mean, risk it? No, because then you just go home. I think the calculation there stays the same. It's more just like there'll be more targets that you could possibly kill. They have to get there quicker. You can punch through the shield quicker. Like, you could put them into panic quicker. All those things will favor the 100-man bomber fleet. But it's like they were already killing stupid people. They're going to keep killing stupid people. That doesn't change. It's going to make the edge cases be a little more. So yeah. So I don't think risk is the right to say, but I think there'll be more cases where you could kill them. Like, I have terrible Rourke fits. If I have even worked mine, which I probably won't, but if I did, I'd be easier to kill me than it was before. So, yeah.
Yeah, I want to jump in here because Bleezy asked a really interesting question here about what we were talking about earlier. So Bleezy's question is, and this is why we do Cool Kids Only mode. Bleezy's question is, you guys said earlier that if you attacked NC that they should just run instead of take the losses. Don't you think that eventually that would hurt the Alliance NC as a whole? In the end, this is a game about fighting, and territory and pride does exist because we're all human. Eventually, you have to take a fight regardless of financial. And that, in sum, is precisely why I am still against headshots, right? So I think that when we saw the North lose a bunch of keep stars during our most recent incursion in the North, it was because we had spent months harassing them and grinding them down and breaking their will, and then taking out these keep stars was the conclusion. I'm against headshots because when it comes down to it, people care more about their pride and their face, particularly when they're involved, particularly with elite PvP organizations like NC. I think that they would fight as hard as possible because they care more about how they look, even if financially and strategically it might be better to just seed a keep star here and there. I've always been anti-headshot. I think that it's a dumb move. I think that the only circumstance in which you could actually do a headshot, and when I say a headshot, I mean not just attacking a keep star, I mean attacking an entity like a first strike, going after their staging system at the outset of a war. That is the definition of a headshot, right? And I think that it's still a bad move because it energizes the opposition. War frenzy is always at a peak right at the outset of a war, and a big dramatic headshot usually results in a big dramatic defense. And we see this in war after war after war over the course of EVE Online. Some people might argue that the game has changed. I think that a campaign against NC would be more effective if it was a traditional way. Like if you wanted to go after NC, you would say deploy one of your smaller but very effective alliances to near the border of Tribute, and then set up a whole series of harassment actions against them that gradually escalates with SIGs and squads as you attack their renters in other regions and undermine their income and gradually burn them out until finally they're desperate, and then you put the fucking dog down. But that's how I would do it.
But here's my thing, and I think again we're looking at Aerith brought up us versus NC. That's the two titans of EVE. In terms of one side versus the other. But I honestly think if you look at like a smaller group, you know, a group like, say, Horde versus Darkness, if one of those entities headshot each other, I think that ends it right there. Boom, done. Right? I don't think there's much recovery there. I think with NC, I don't think that would work. But like a group like that fighting each other, a headshot that'd be it, right? And that's what happened to CO2 in the North, right? They went in, they headshot MO Keepstar, and then CO2 left. They walked out of the North, went south. They said, "Fuck it, we're done." Right? They got headshot. It was over. This is
That was like a month or two of fighting before they
fighting.
We didn't headshot CO2.
I mean,
CO2 was
before that. You know,
we were purging their iHubs. Yeah, we were doing a whole thing before.
No, not us. I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about when it was NCPL.
Oh, sorry.
I don't know. I just think that the game is going to change to where a headshot really could fuck the war right at the outset. Like if you could pull it off successfully, that's it. The war's over. Like the 3 weeks, they're done, right? But I don't think it'll work against a group like us or NC Dot. I don't see that as a possibility.
Well, it would work against any group where they have an ability to go to new space, right? They could peace out. Either they have other space or they have other space that they would easily take. I think then those can work. I think the game's changed in a way where no one wants to throw away a year's worth of work now. Like the game's changed to where old battles, they hurt, but they would be a month's income. Now we're looking at 6 months income for some of these alliances for each fight. I mean, that's not a reasonable thing to continue. Like they can do it once or twice, and then what? Then they're out of this, and then they're just going to say, okay, every Titan or ship you lose now, you just lose. How many people are going to show up to that fight? Nobody.
Okay. Right? Aerith, why is that though? Why is it 6 months instead of a month? Like just 2 years ago.
The fights because it's so many Titans. It's Titans online now. Right. So when we're sitting here volleying each other for 5 or 6 hours, I don't care who you are. It's trillions of ish you're about to lose.
Okay,
I think that's accurate. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I appreciate? I appreciate Nominate being here.
Nominate doesn't ever talk.
Nominate is the quiet one.
Well, we got a few minutes. I want to ask Nominate this. You were very vocal in that you liked this change. What is your favorite change in this coming patch, if it goes in as is?
Oh, that's a tough one. I definitely like the diminishing returns. I'm hoping that this is something that will be expanded, and I don't know. I think that the addition of broadcasting was one of the worst things that happened to subcap combat in the game.
Well, just my position with CCP for the last year has been I want all remote logistics removed. But I'm sort of...
I want to see stuff dying. I hate ships not dying. That's the... When two fleets smack into each other, both sides should lose a lot of ships. The fights where both sides lose a lot are always the fights where everybody has... It's just a better game when logistics aren't keeping people alive.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, that's something that, back in the day during the Great War, one of the reasons why the Great War was such a fun hate fuck between all parties involved wasn't just the actual hatred in and out of game, but it was the fact that every time all of the parties would clash, shit, like just horrific amounts of shit would die on both sides. It was amazing because logistics wasn't a thing back then. And so when two fleets would slam into each other, you could really have much more of like an ISK war kind of attitude. Like the early days of Goonswarm, we would just dive bomb hundreds, if not thousands, of ships into much more expensive hostile fleets. And that was an effective tactic because logistics weren't a thing. Like, you might lose your entire fleet, but you take a whole bunch of the other guys down and you'd win the ISK war. And then when the rise of logistics happened, you started seeing at the apex of this was the T3 cruiser meta a couple years ago, where you'd be like, okay, there's these two fleets, each of them max size, clashing, and then one just jumps off the field after 10 Logi die, because it was just a fight to see who can kill each other's Logi. One starts losing it, and then the fleet is still durable enough to just get out without really losing much. So the battle reports just got more and more boring.
Everyone loves a good bloodbath.
I love a good bloodbath, but you've seen too many alliances in the game, and Goons have done this before too, where if an FC is involved in too many bloodbaths, you look at him and go, okay, why are you losing ships? Why is this happening? And you see this a lot in EVE, where if a group loses enough fights, they just start to back away from fighting, right? They did go back into this like turtle mode. So I don't know if no logistics is a good thing, but diminishing returns is something we've been asking for years. I made an article on INN, 4 or 5 years ago now, when Archon repping was a big ball, and that was a big deal, saying Archon should have diminishing returns with each other, because 400 is impossible to kill, right? And people called me crazy. They said, well, diminishing returns, that'd be pointless. Nobody would ever fly ships. So I think diminishing returns is fucking amazing.
Well, we got rid of reps. You would see, Ferox fleets and MOA fleets. Like, that's what people would fly, right? There wouldn't be Ishtar fleets and Serbs and those kind of things. There'd be no reason.
It'd be too risky. Like, you wouldn't see more than 10 Titans appear, because if you have 50, you're going to lose 50. And they're going to get tackled, and they're just going to die. Right? You'd have
that may be a better game, like more brawls, less power. That might be better. I don't know, but it would certainly change the game. Back to a line out, clear tackle, warp off if you get primary. Was that more fun? I don't know.
Real quick before we go, I meant to ask this earlier. I forgot. This is huge. We didn't discuss this, and I need to know in my own mind this week. Diminishing returns, tie-dye. We know how tie-dye affects every aspect of the game. It's dramatic in how you choose your targets, how you switch targets rapidly. Tie-dye affects the game in a massive way. How's it going to affect diminishing returns? How long are the diminishing return negatives going to stay with you, right? CSP showed if you have 100 reps on you, it goes down to 30% once you get over 100 reps. But in tie-dye, how long is that going to stick going? If you switch targets rapidly, you shoot one guy and then 2 minutes later shoot another guy, and then you go back to that target. Is that going to be a possible thing now with the tie-dye and diminishing returns?
Well, the way I understood it is that it's basically that is the diminishing return per server. So if you have that level of reps on you, it calculates each server tick individually.
Yeah, I don't see how tie-dye would affect that one way or the other, because it's basically a stacking penalty, right? Like we already have with mods.
Yeah, I mean, you have a stacking penalty with mods on individual ships, but if I have 100 ships shooting one guy, there's no stacking penalty there, right? So in tie-dye, it doesn't matter if it's 100 guys shooting the same guy or with or without tie-dye. But reps, this could be getting interesting, because a lot of times in big fleet fights, you'll say, okay, everyone rep the target that our spy has reported that's about to be shot. So now you're throwing the reps on it early to kind of catch him before the damage hits that critical point.
I don't think it's a lasting effect. It's just a question of how many reps are running on a target when the rep cycle.
Yeah, it would be calculated at the ship level, right? Like if you are adding HP to shield or to armor, it would be calculated at the level presumably of the ship that is receiving the reps, and it aggregates the amount of incoming HP, and then I don't know exactly how it would work code-wise, but it shouldn't, mechanically speaking, have an impact on tie-dye. Or excuse me, tie-dye should not be impacting those calculations. It might, depending upon if the code is bad or whatever, it might make tie-dye worse, but I kind of, we'll just have to see
that's something
comes up with code-wise.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see that on the test server, right? That's where I'm going to see it. When you get into tie-dye situations, how does the game handle that? So that, we have all these great FCs here, and people, that's a great way to ask that. A lot of people asked me that this week, so.
You weren't including yourself in that, right? As great FC.
No, I haven't been a great FC in 10 years, so I don't even know what you're talking about.
Well, at least you're self-aware.
10 years ago? Wink, wink.
Well, when you're the only FC, there is no comparison, right? So 10
By
years
default.
ago, by default, I was the great FC because I was the only one. So there was no competition. It's like if instead of being 21st best FC, if there's only one, you're number one, right? Like, it's just how it works.
But I don't know if you know this, but I made the rankings when I placed myself 23, and I actually put you in slot 1 to 5. It's just the big red boat 5 times over. You're like,
is it because I'm fat? Is that what you're trying to say, Ashton? Thanks, man.
You're like dialing when it comes to the top 5 rappers.
That's okay. It's actually been a common theme this week. Pretty much the last 2 weeks, Horde has gone on a let's call boat fat. Maybe that'll slow down Sigs and Squad's ability to kill our ships. Unironically, I have lots of logs. It's great.
You have lots of logs?
Oh, yeah, chat logs.
For your fat shame?
Yeah, the fat shaming, dude. They have like pages of it. It's hilarious. It's like, yeah, we're constantly losing fleets.
They call them logs or rolls?
No, it's okay. It's one log one, yeah. But
Wow.
I was gonna make another joke, but I'll save that for a couple of months because I got an announcement there. But yeah, we're out of time.
I mean, I've seen boats belly button, and I'm pretty sure most of those Horde guys would have sex with it.
Are you saying their dick is small enough to fit?
They couldn't satisfy both.
Wow. Oh, holy shit. Oh, my God.
Subscribers only time.
Gotta love subscribers only time. I mean,
After dark.
it gets even funnier because one of the things I'm working on is running in a thing called the Flying Pig, which is a race held in Cincinnati. And it's a hilarious thing. So I'm going to be running a 5K in May. So that's going to be pretty cool.
Are you going to be running or flying? I'm confused.
The goal is 28 minutes on that. So 28-minute 3-mile. Which would be pretty nice.
Hopefully, do you like dress up in a flying pig?
No, yeah. So a lot of the people who do the marathon, they get like cool shirts that say "Flying Pig," and then you get like a hat or something. It's really cool. The 5K and 10K. Yeah, the 10K and 5K runs are like through like streets like 4 through 5. It's
K.
cool.
I think you said kegs. 5 kegs.
No, not kegs. No, 5 kilometers. 5K.
And this is like a marathon thing?
Yeah, so they do the 5 and 10K, and then they do a half marathon and full marathon. And you run.
How long does it take to drive?
Do you wear sports bra?
No, I don't. No. God,
That's kind of rude. It was kind of rude, Eric.
That's fucked up, dude. God damn, everyone else is making like low-key jokes, and you're coming in with the. So you're so fat, you need a bra boat. Damn.
Maybe he just wants to, see some action there.
Hey man,
maybe he wants pics.
By the end of the summer.
Talking about so.
By the end of the summer, I'm gonna be a skinny boat, so it don't matter. I'm already down 20 pounds. I don't give a fuck.
I'm just saying, every Caribbean vacation, you got to make it.
Yeah, hey, when are we gonna do that? We need to go to like Jamaica or something this year instead of Mexico. We need to change the destination.
All right. Well, speaking of
we're
changing
out of time. Yeah, I gotta go.
We're changing the destination.
I have shit to do.
Being done. Yes.
Yeah, we'll be back next week.
Thank you, everyone, on our massive panel and that wasn't intended as a fat joke, but I guess it could be taken one. And the current content.
I don't give a fuck. That's fine.
To our massive panel, and good luck with losing the Winter 15 or whatever. We will be back next week, and thanks a lot, guys. It has been awesome.
Yeah, see you guys next week. All right, see ya.
I'll see you then.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.